Time now to debate some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have an encore performance with former State Senator Jim DeBackus and former House Speaker Greg Hughes. And we also have Taco with us today. Jim, show everyone Taco.
Jeez, comfort pet. We have to have a comfort pet now. That's where we are.
Okay, so I have to have you guys on again this week because you took like 10 and a half minutes on one topic last week and didn't get into this other stuff. Maybe that's your strategy to get back on the show.
He interrupts me, Glenn. That's the problem here.
All right, I want to talk about, after the dust settles, any need to rebrand for the two major political parties. Greg, let's start with you. What role do you see the president continuing to play in the party, and what role should he play for those that struggled with him?
Not since 1988, Glenn, have you seen a Republican candidate for president be competitive or win states like Pennsylvania and Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. We've seen the 2020 elections roll out. More than 10 million, I think 10 million people now is the count, have voted for Trump than did before. The takeaway, win or lose, is you have a Republican Party now that's competitive in states that it had not been competitive for a long time. And this is the reason. The Republican Party is the party for the everyday person.
But who carries the mantle from here on out? Because I'm going to give you another set of evidence. In the state of Utah, the president did not fare as well. He was lower than every single Republican statewide candidate. That's an indicator that some Republicans did not vote for him in Utah.
Sure, and look, and you have the president's approach that isn't welcomed by all. But look at this president significantly. He easily won the state of Utah. If you listen to some of the narratives, you would have thought that a state like Utah would have been in play, given what you've just described, but it wasn't. He won this state. Look at what some people call a blue or a much more moderate county like Salt Lake County, and look at the success that we saw Republican candidates have in Salt Lake County. If you look across this country, we are as a country a melting pot. You've got a Democrat Party that wants to divide us by race and gender. Some people call them the latte liberals, the limousine liberals. The everyday person of this country that makes it the melting pot that it is, they're identifying with Republican candidates and a Republican Party, and I love it. I'm excited about it.
Okay, Jim, let's bring you into the conversation now. Democrats suffered some losses on election night here locally and across the country. Every single Republican incumbent in the House won. Only one so far in the Senate lost. So any rebranding in order for the Democrats on a national level?
Well, let's talk about the state level first, and because Greg is so glowing, he forgot to say the president lost and he got clobbered. It was, using Trump's own words, a landslide with 306 electoral votes. He lost the close ones. The Democrats moved into positions that they've never been in before. I'm fine with that, but I'm very concerned about the Utah Democratic Party. I think this was the most cataclysmic election for them in a generation. The party made a decision to go with a moderate conservative Democrat, and they made that decision, and the people of Utah have decided, you know what, if I'm going to vote for a Republican, I might as well vote for a Republican and not a Republican light. The devastation all around
Who are you referring to specifically right there?
Who am I referring to?
Yeah.
Shireen, of course, Ben. I'm looking at the last time we were here, and we had 3 or 4 legislative seats, which isn't many when there are 78 members. But nonetheless, the Democrats, look, what happens is the Republicans gerrymander every 10 years. And the election after the gerrymandering is a catastrophe because they picked all the districts. By the time the 8 years roll around, though, they get competitive again. So if you look back over the last 40 years, the last election of the decade is the one that the Democrats do the best. That didn't happen this time. Democrats are going to have to, Utah Democrats are going to have to look in their souls.
Glenn, can I point out, I would counter what Jim just said. I don't think it's Republican light. I think you had a Nancy Pelosi and a national narrative with the Democrats of mob rules. Public safety is now a Republican issue, and public safety was pretty intuitive to all Americans at one point. You had a Speaker of the House with a radical agenda that walked members of Congress that were Democrats like Ben McAdams down the plank, requiring their fidelity to some very radical policies of which Utahns don't subscribe to. And so I think you have, it's not that Democrats or that the electorate said, well, they look just like a Republican, we may as well vote for a Republican. You have, sadly, with the Republicans in Utah, and this is happening nationally, they are not identifying with this radical socialist, defund the police type of narrative that you're seeing. It is alienating the everyday people of our country. And look, like I said, as a Republican, every member of Congress that was elected that's a Republican this year is a minority, a female, or a veteran. What a great melting pot. I love it.
Jim,
I absolutely love it.
Jim, that is a question I brought to you in the beginning. On the national level, is the party in need of a rebrand?
Well, I think we did pretty well. We took the White House. That doesn't happen. Presidents get reelected a second term most of the time. Something extraordinary has to happen. And Joe Biden was the guy. Democrats, the progressives...
But on a night that you take the White House, should you not do better in the House and Senate as well?
It was a weird election, and the Republicans
I have my theory on that, but I won't go there.
Made up a lot of stuff, you know, that just wasn't so. They ran a good campaign, but they lost the big enchilada. But I guess we're going to get to the Ben McAdams, Burgess Owens campaign, because I think that typifies in a lot of ways the repugnant state of the Republican Party, and especially the Utah Republican Party.
Let's get into that a little bit more. Greg, we saw that seat flip. Ben McAdams only held it for one term, and we saw a lot of candidates early lining up and kind of testing the waters, but saying, no thanks, I'm not going to do it. Burgess Owens sticks with it, and he turns that seat. How was he able to do that?
Well, I think you did have some good candidates that stepped forward. I thought the Republican primary for that seat was a tough race that Burgess won. Again, the national narrative for Democrats does not match the values of the state of Utah. That was a seat that's probably one of the most Republican seats that a Democrat member of Congress holds in America. He won that seat by 700 votes or so. To just walk whole step with Nancy Pelosi the way he did, not showing that independence, I think was a mistake, certainly in hindsight. But I will tell you that Ben was a known quantity as a mayor of Salt Lake County, but it just goes to show that the message of the Democrat Party nationally, especially when they want every member to toe the line with that aggressive agenda they have, the people of Utah said no thank you.
Okay, but in the 4th District, polling had shown that the district was happy with Representative McAdams. We saw him come out with commercials. Well-known Republicans, one, your good buddy, Mayor Walker, in Draper,
every time he was on,
him.
Someone called me. I know
so
that
why
one.
did that fall flat, Jim?
It fell flat because gerrymandering is the first reason, of course. Ben did really... Salt Lake County has 1.1 million people, and it doesn't have its own congressman. They take the people of liberal Salt Lake City and they tie them in with Fairview, and they tie them in with Juab County so that they can disembowel the votes of the people in Salt Lake County and Salt Lake City. That's absurd. Salt Lake City, with a third of the state's population, deserves its own congressperson. And hopefully the legislature, well, hope springs eternal, will do something about it.
If that premise was true, he wouldn't have won that seat in the first place in 2018. He won a seat that was drawn that way.
There is an argument, though, that those initiatives of 2018 were very big, drew a very big turnout.
Let's get back to the race, though, if I can for a minute, Glenn. Ben McAdams is a kid from the west side of Bountiful, single mom with a big family. She's a school teacher. He ends up in Columbia with a law degree, one of the brightest human beings around, a man as honest as the day is long, a decent man, respected the opinions of everybody. And this clown who's elected is already humiliating Utahns. He hasn't even been sworn in yet. You know, he gets on Fox News.
Characterization.
He gets on Fox News. First thing after he's elected, and he's raising money, and he says, I was cheated in the election and somebody ought to go to jail. Give me a break.
Okay,
That's what we're going to have. Is that,
I don't know what he's
We have
talking
about 30
but-
seconds
is
left.
that what
Greg,
we need in
Greg,
Washington?
Now, let me
address
tell you
that.
something. You don't have to besmirch Burgess Owens in talking about
besmirches
who
himself.
Ben McAdams is. There is no place in the Democrat Party for moderates or blue dog Democrats who were conservative in nature, represent more conservative districts. There is no place for them in the National Democrat Party, and that is a big problem with your party going forward, Jim. If anyone needs a rebranding right now, it would be them, but don't do it. I kind of like where we're at. I absolutely expect and hope
Okay.
that our Republicans will
Gentlemen,
represent the middle class.
We're going to have to end it on that
And the
note. We
everyday
did have
people.
Burgess on the night the...
He brings a dog, he gets a sympathy. Look at that. You
we-
can't bring a
we
dog
did have
on.
Burgess on the
Everybody's
night-
going to love the dog. I got no chance.
We did have Burgess on the night the race was called, and he did not bring that up. And,
He was
And we
nice to
definitely
you.
do not see any sign of inappropriate behavior on the behalf
Watch him
of
on
the Salt Lake
Fox
County Clerk.
News.
All right, gentlemen, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being here. Stay with us.
Thanks.
We'll be
Bye,
right back
Taco.
with more Inside Utah Politics right after.
Does your dog bite?